Hello, everyone. Lauren Wild here, professional astrologer. Welcome to Weaving the Wild. Today, we are going to talk about the Libra New Moon that is at 5:55 Eastern Standard Time on September the 25th. So that has us at American time, Eastern Standard. But I live in Eastern Standard, and the fact that it's 5:55, and for the last 3 days, I've caught 5:55 at the actual time, and then my microwave is like completely incorrect. And for the last 3 days, I've caught it twice a day. So that means I've caught 555 3 days in a row, 3 times. Like the new moon coming up is like, yeah, it feels a little auspicious, but we're going to go with it. So, what I want to talk about first is the autumn equinox. So, we get our second equinox in the wheel of the year at this time every single year, and that is when the sun moves into the Libra constellation. So in the northern hemisphere, we get our autumnal equinox, and in the southern hemisphere, they get their spring equinox. And the equinoxes stand for the equalizing. Now, when you're moving to the autumn part, we're cascading towards darkness. And when you're moving to the bright part of the year, the lunar or the solar part of the year, you're moving towards the light, right? And so for those of us in the northern hemisphere, we are now going into the descent of our wheel of the year. We're walking with Persephone as she goes to the underground, or Inanna. We've also got Venus about to go under the skyline, under the heavens, and do her descent as well, as she's about to make her Venus star point at 29 degrees of Libra. So we've got quite a few things going on. At this new moon, we've got 6 planets stationed retrograde. It's not uncommon to have 6 planets retrograde at this time of the year. A lot of people are starting to get into astrology. It's not that uncommon, but especially all the outer planets, they're all retrograde at this point. So, Mercury was retrograde this time last year as well, and it was squaring Pluto 3 times. So, we haven't been out of this territory. If you look back, it's been really, really similar for the last, I don't know, decade. So, just to kind of lighten it a little bit, we will survive. However, this new moon is an interesting one. I think it's a powerful new moon. I think it's got some opportunities for some major confusion, but also some major invitations to transformation and evolution. It's also our last new moon before we hit our solar eclipse at 2 degrees of Scorpio, and that puts us back into eclipse season. So we're at month 5 of our last eclipse, which was in May, and we had the opposite, right? So we had our solar eclipse in Taurus and our lunar eclipse at 25 degrees of Scorpio, which was a big purge, a big one. And so it's setting us up for the opposite now. So we're going to get a solar eclipse in Scorpio and a lunar eclipse in Taurus. And October and November are going to be really interesting because of Gemini's retrograde that's coming up shortly. So we'll swap out Mercury retrograde for Gemini retrograde at the end of October, as well as an eclipse. And it's going to get hairy, but I feel like when has it not been hairy since 2018? Really 2016, is when we got into this, like we put the frog in the water, and the water's been heating up ever since. Like we've been in this for so long that I don't want to jinx myself, because I was like, how bad can it get? In the last 2 weeks have nearly killed me, at least my spirit. I'm going to be honest. I'm feeling relatively normal. It's probably because the sun is conjunct my sun now. It's going to be my birthday a week from today. So happy birthday, Libras, by the way. And what we are looking at is quite a few major aspects. And so I want to jump into that, and then I want to talk about the takeaways as well. So before I forget, let me get out my piece of paper. One of the biggest pieces is the fact that the new moon will be at 2 degrees of Libra, and it's going to be opposite Jupiter. It's going to be not exact, but within a 1 degree separation. So a 1 degree orb, that's a tight opposition. All right. So what we're looking at is the energy of Aries and Libra. And, Jupiter is in Aries. It went through Pisces really, really fast this year. and moved into Aries in late July. And so we've been getting a taste, of Jupiter in Aries. It got to 8 degrees of Aries and then it retrograded back. And now it's only a few degrees away from late degree of Pisces. And, we'll get this push back because on January 1st of 2023, Jupiter moves back into 0 degrees of Aries. I just think that that's such a Aries thing to do, is like the immediate moment that it could show up in Aries. It's like, me, I'm taking the lead. It's such like an Aries initiating energy. But we got a taste of it, okay? And so it's slowly but surely pulling back into the late degrees of Pisces, where it's going to work into its conjunction with Neptune. Now, it's not going to exact it, but it's going to get close enough, and it's going to slow us down. It's going to take us back into the dreaming waters of Neptune and Pisces, into our spiritual centers, into trust and faith and belief in something bigger than ourselves. And I keep trying to tell people, appreciate the retrograde season while we have it, because even though like we're blocked and we feel like we have obstacles, they're there for a reason. Because once Jupiter hits Aries in the beginning of the year, the nodal aspect is going to shift into Aries in the summer of next year. We're going to have late degree Aries eclipses. And then we're going to have Saturn moving out of Aquarius into Pisces. We're going to start getting Uranus in the late degrees of Taurus. Like the next few years after this are like fast moving. It's such a different energy, especially, with Uranus moving into Gemini and Neptune moving into Aries and Pluto moving into Aquarius. And we've got some big stuff coming up, and we're in these final pieces of really releasing these heavy earth-based energies, these heavy karmic material energies. And they could be exhausting because it's the same old thing and it's these old structures, but at the same time, we at least know them. Where we're going is going to be moving fast and it's going to be different. It's going to be a different paradigm than we've really known. And so I keep trying to help people like remember, like, slow down, like appreciate the slowness of it, because once once Jupiter gets into Aries, like it's just going to move so fast, especially the North Node gets into Aries. Um, but that being said, let's talk a little bit about Jupiter opposite the Sun and the Moon. So the Sun and Moon always happen when there's a new moon; they're exactly conjunct. That means that we are going to have our dark moon energy Friday and Saturday, and a little bit of Sunday in Virgo. So this is good banishment working energy for my witches and wild workers out there. This is good time to let some stuff go that needs to be purged, purified, clean your house, do some, autumn equinox cleaning, if you will. But anything that is out of balance needs to go. I know for me, I had surgery and I'm in the process of like getting rid of clothes that don't fit me well, or things that like just don't work anymore. It just doesn't work for me anymore. And so I've been, well, sort of myself moving furniture, mainly relying on people to help me move furniture, but trying to reset the energy, right? Virgo, especially late degree Virgo, which we'll talk about more here in a minute when we talk about Mercury retrograde, is about purification, right? It is very much the priestesses and priests of the zodiac, and they want to purge and they want to purify. They want to get rid of things that don't work anymore, and are just kind of icky and gross. Like they don't do well in hoarding areas or unclean places, like there's a lot of germs, things like that, especially late degree Virgo, kind of a germophobic, so good opportunity to get rid of some stuff. But Jupiter in Aries is very much the expansion of self. So it's like, how you take action, how you're brave, how you're artistic, how you're creative, how you're the leader, how you initiate things, how you focus on yourself. But it is opposite the Sun and the Moon in Libra, which is the other, right? So Libra is seventh house ruler. It's about relationships. So the next piece I want to talk about that's like a major aspect is going to be the fact that Mercury is retrograde. It's 5 degree orb separating, but it is still a conjunction. And it is going to be retrograde. The Sun, we had a Kazemi yesterday and today, and that is like a light bulb moment, an epiphany, right? And this is about something like that needs to be cleaned up, some tasks that need to be completed, and some big mindsets that need to be established and really worked through with what? Virgo, routine, consistency, routine, management, time orientation. So, the moon, in my opinion, I really like this moon. I really do. I think that it is, forcing us to focus on our own self and our health and like our own growth. Aries is very much the child of the zodiac, so even inner child work, the expansion of the individuation process, like knowing what you need to be okay, and then how that translates back into a we space. I always call this the me space and the we space of the Aries and the Libra. Aries being the self, can be very selfish and bossy. And then Libra being very diplomatic, even diplomatic to the point of using it almost like a weapon. Very, very focused on others and the self, and wants to harmonize and find balance and equality. Because the new moon and the sun are there, it is going to take precedence. Okay. Especially with the equinox. It is like, where is their balance? Where is there a lack of fairness? I don't know if you guys have been watching about what's been going on in Iran, but we are seeing women, getting brave and taking off their hijabs for freedom because of a situation that happened with what they call the morality police in Iran, where there was a woman that was traveling there who her hair was present, and she was taken in by the morality police and then murdered. I should have said a trigger warning. I apologize for that. But there's a lot of bravery happening for the collective. Okay. So I do see that as part of this new moon opposite Jupiter and Aries, very brave. But I also see that with one of the other major aspects to this new moon lunation, and that is Mars at 18 degrees in a trine to Saturn retrograde at 19 degrees in Aquarius. And so very much like take action energy, warrior like energy. Mars is our drive. It's in the sign of Gemini, which rules the mind, setting up, for our Mars retrograde at the end of October, which will take place at 25 degrees of Gemini. And so it really pushes us towards these big mindset oriented, conscious mind efforts to become curious, to think of new ways outside of the box, things like that. But what we're also going to see in this aspect is Saturn, 19 degrees of Aquarius, in a square to the North Node at 18 degrees of Taurus, which is conjunct the North Node. It is pushing us towards our collective destiny. But, right now, we've got this really interesting place of freedom and for the people, and progress for traditions and limitations in government, and tradition like a morality police would be a great example of that, right? And so we're seeing this interesting setup of these stars getting into alignment that are asking us to think original, to break out of boxes, and then to figure out how we're going to structure it, and make it material moving forward. And so one of the other major aspects is the fact that Pluto is retrograde at 26 degrees of Capricorn, and it is going to trine Mercury retrograde at 27 degrees of Virgo, and Venus direct at 25 degrees of Virgo. So Mercury retrograde is conjunct Venus. And why that's important right there is because it's about a relationship. Venus is about money and relationships. Okay. And then the new moon is going to be in Libra, which is also about relationships. And so we've got a lot of relationship issues coming up to the surface. When we look at Jupiter and Aries, we're talking about, well, how does this relationship benefit myself? How does this relationship allow me to grow? How does this relationship allow me to expand? Is there equanimity in this relationship? Is there my ability to be myself and authentic in this relationship? Aries says I am, has to be authentic. Or is, am I going to lose myself in this? Am I going to, basically become a doormat for somebody else? And so it's an interesting aspect when we think about it in terms of ourself, but then the collective, especially when we think about places like Iran right now, where lots of women are literally putting themselves online right now, and extremely brave people, extremely brave. So, but what I want to go with before I squirrel, is that Mercury retrograde and Venus in the late degrees of Virgo are going to trine Pluto retrograde at 26 degrees of Capricorn. Okay. Why that's important is because Pluto is deep evolution, deep evolution, like multiple lifetimes worth of evolution. And we're talking about self-esteem. We're talking about money. We're talking about top-down power. We're talking about the depths of our mindsets, because we're talking about Pluto and then Mercury. And this time last year, Mercury was retrograde square Pluto. And so it's like we get a check back into this time last year to go like deep, to really try to get into the trenches of our minds, the recesses of our minds, and do shadow work to, examine and shine a light on maybe some areas of ourselves that we are retracting ourselves back, or we are self-sabotaging, or we are like living out of an inner child type situation, and we need to reparent ourselves and grow up. Those would be some of the things that might pop up during this period of time. So those are some of the major aspects that I wanted to see. I always tell people, don't tell me all this stuff if you're not going to translate it, and tell me what to do about it. This weekend is an opportunity to possibly release relationships that no longer serve you, release relationships that ask you to change who you are and not be authentic to who you are, release relationships that do not serve the expansion of the development of yourself through relationship. If you feel like you are going to have to lose yourself, then this might be a great time to purify or purge that relationship out of your life. I always tell people, like, this is about the evolution of self and other. And so this is a huge opportunity for us to grow, especially as Saturn ticks back into that 18 degrees and really works its way back into that exact square with Uranus. We're looking at, major change that drives us eventually towards new structures, new mindsets, and new ways of being and existing. So I hope that this is helpful to you. I hope that you have a beautiful equinox season as we now start to turn in the wheel of the year towards Samhain, which is our ancestors' moon, as well as our Scorpio eclipse. It's going to be a wild one. It's going to be really, really powerful. And I hope that this was helpful for you guys. So my suggestions, my equinox suggestions for those of you in the Western Hemisphere is to have a bonfire. Same for the Southern Hemisphere is bonfire. These are fire festivals. And to do gratitude. So griefs and gratitudes. What are you grateful for? What have you harvested so far this year since spring equinox? And if you're in spring equinox energy, because you're in the Southern Hemisphere, it'd be like, what are the things you want to plant this year so that you can harvest them in 6 months? Another thing would be baking bread, apple pies, going apple picking, anything that has cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, leaves. One of my favorite, most simple things that I do every time this year is I pick up a leaf every day and I put it in this little vase I have, and I say something I'm grateful for. And then at Samhain, which is the death of the year, I burn them all as gratitude to the land and give the ashes back to the land, for good fertilizer for my garden next year. So I hope that you have a beautiful weekend. Don't forget, this is like really good energy to literally clean and purify and rework the energy of your home. Open up your doors, get out your besoms, and sweep the old energy out. Rework your spaces, rework your spell altars. If you got any spell jars on your altars that are done or they need to be done, get them off your altar, release them and rework them. And I hope you guys have a beautiful equinox. I'll see you guys on when we get to our Aries full moon, which that'll be a powerful one because it'll be conjunct Chiron. So until then, bye guys. Have a great afternoon.